7 signs you're lost in the rift between light and dark dimensions. There are moments in your life where nothing seems wrong, but everything feels off. You wake up, and the world looks the same, but it isn't. You walk through your day, but it feels like you're watching yourself from a distance. People talk to you, but their words don't land. You laugh, but it sounds hollow. You cry, but the pain doesn't release. You start to ask yourself questions you never used to ask. Why does everything feel so fragmented? Why does my intuition feel hijacked? Why do I feel like I don't fully exist here anymore? That's not depression. That's not burnout. That's the rift. And if you're experiencing any of this, you're already inside it. The rift between light and dark dimensions is not a place, it's a state of being. It's the energetic gap between timelines where your soul is being pulled in multiple directions and your body is trying to catch up. It's like being logged into 2 realities at once. One foot in the physical world, the other in the unseen realm. And no one talks about it because most people don't even know it's real. But it is. And the first sign that you're lost in the rift is the eerie, disorienting sense that time is no longer linear. You don't know what day it is. You forget what you were doing 5 minutes ago. Hours vanish. Days blur. You start to question whether some events even happened at all. You try to ground yourself, but the ground keeps shifting. That's because time doesn't behave normally in the rift. It bends, collapses, loops. And when your consciousness is split between dimensions, your internal clock stops obeying human rules.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The second sign is that your emotions become exaggerated and contradictory. 1 minute, you feel absolute peace. The next, you're drowning in dread. Your heart opens with cosmic love, then slams shut with existential rage. You cry for no reason, then laugh uncontrollably at nothing. This is not emotional instability, it's dimensional interference. Because in the rift, your emotional body becomes a battleground. The light dimension is trying to elevate you. The dark dimension is trying to anchor you in fear. You are the rope in a cosmic tug of war. And the more sensitive you are, the more you feel every single pull. You're not broken, you're attuned. But no one taught you how to survive when your soul is being stretched between realities. The third sign is that your dreams become more vivid, symbolic, and sometimes terrifying. You stop having random dreams and start entering realms. You meet beings, you receive messages. You experience deaths and rebirths every night. You wake up with bruises, tears in your eyes, or a phrase repeating in your mind like an ancient spell. And sometimes you can't tell if you're dreaming or remembering. That's because the veil is thinnest in the rift. Your subconscious becomes a portal. And your soul uses that portal to send you codes, warnings, and instructions. Ignore them, and you stagnate. Decode them, and you evolve. But decoding them requires presence. And presence is hard to find when you feel like you're being haunted by your own life. The fourth sign is the breakdown of logic. Things stop making sense in the way they used to. You say things you've never thought before. You understand truths you were never taught. You see through people instantly. You know what someone is about to say before they say it. You walk into rooms and feel energy before you see anyone. Your senses sharpen, but they also betray you. Food tastes different. Sounds become too loud or too quiet. Lights flicker when you're angry. Technology malfunctions around you. This is your nervous system adjusting to a higher bandwidth of reality. You're not malfunctioning, you're recalibrating. Your body is trying to translate multidimensional input into a 3D experience. That's like trying to play a 4000 video on a broken VOS tape. It's messy, it's glitchy, but it's progress. The fifth sign is a deep, unshakable sense that you no longer belong. Not in a depressive, nobody likes me way, but in a cosmic, I'm not from here way. You look at society and it feels like theater. You hear people talk, and it sounds scripted. You try to engage in small talk, but your soul starts screaming. You want to disappear, not to escape, but to remember. You start craving silence, solitude, sacredness. You feel like you're being called somewhere, but you don't know where. This is not isolation, it's preparation. Because when you're in the rift, the universe pulls you out of the noise so you can hear your real calling. Not the one you were taught to chase, but the one you buried lifetimes ago. The sixth sign is that your body becomes a mystery. All symptoms return with new intensity. You feel exhausted but can't sleep. You sleep but wake up more tired than before. You experience random jolts of energy, spontaneous heat in your spine, tingling in your hands, pressure in your forehead. You feel like something is trying to break out of you. It is. Your light body is upgrading. Your DNA is remembering. Your cells are responding to frequencies your conscious mind can't yet understand. Don't fear the discomfort. The discomfort is a signal that you're shedding density. But you must take care of your vessel, hydrate, ground, breathe, rest. This is sacred transformation, not illness. And the seventh sign, the one most people miss, is the sudden and repeated appearance of mirrors. Literal and symbolic. You start seeing reflections everywhere. In people, in numbers, in music, in moments that feel eerily familiar. The rift uses mirrors to teach you, to show you what you've denied, loved, hated, and forgotten. Every mirror is a message. Every synchronicity is a breadcrumb. And when you start following them, you begin to rewrite your reality from the inside out. But if you ignore them, if you keep pretending everything's normal, you'll stay stuck in the in-between. Half awake, half alive. So I ask you this, what if you're not lost? What if you're being led? What if the chaos is choreography? What if everything falling apart is actually falling into alignment? Why the rift feeds on confusion and how to remember who you are. The rift between light and dark doesn't consume you with violence, it consumes you with confusion. That is its greatest weapon. Not destruction, but distortion. When you're inside it, you don't know what's real anymore. Your thoughts feel like echoes. Your memories feel altered. You second-guess your own intuition, your own voice, your own heart. Everything becomes foggy, like you're walking through a dream you can't wake up from. And that's exactly how the rift works. It doesn't need to overpower you. It only needs to make you doubt yourself. Because once doubt sets in, your light dims. And the darker it gets, the harder it becomes to find your way back. You see, confusion is a frequency. It's not just a mental state, it's an energy field. And when you're in the rift, that energy wraps around you like mist, making everything unclear. The rift feeds on that. It grows stronger when you question your worth, when you believe you're broken, when you think you've lost your path. The more you spiral in those thoughts, the deeper you sink into the in-between. That's why so many people stay stuck there for years. They don't even know they're in it. They just think life feels empty, aimless, numb. But it's not life that's empty, it's the connection to life that's been severed. So how do we remember ourselves when the rift has made us forget? The first step is to reclaim your inner authority. When you're stuck in the rift, you tend to outsource your truth. You look for signs, for saviors, for validation. You wait for someone or something to confirm what your soul already knows. But the problem with that is when you're in the rift, external reflections are warped. You'll attract mirrors that show you distortion, not clarity. People who project their own fears onto you. Situations that amplify your confusion. Algorithms that feed your anxiety. That's why the only compass you can trust in the rift is the one inside you. Your inner knowing. Your quiet, still voice. Even when it whispers, even when it stutters, it's still yours. And it remembers. But here's the hard truth. Remembering who you are isn't comfortable. It's not a gentle awakening. It's a ripping away of everything you thought you were. All the masks, the personas, the beliefs you adopted to survive gone. The rift doesn't ask you to remember your resume. It asks you to remember your essence. Who were you before the world named you? Before trauma shaped you? Before society told you what was acceptable, desirable, or possible? That's the version of you the rift is trying to reveal. But to see it, you have to be willing to unsee everything else. And that's where most people get stuck. They want the truth, but they don't want to give up the illusion. They want clarity, but they're still clinging to confusion because it feels safe, familiar. But confusion is not safety, it's sedation. It keeps you numb, passive, controlled. And the longer you stay in that frequency, the more your soul dims into silence. That's why awakening from the rift requires courage. Not the courage to fight, but the courage to feel, to sit in the discomfort, to ask hard questions like, what have I been pretending not to know? What truth keeps knocking on my door, but I keep ignoring it? What part of me have I buried so deeply that I've forgotten it exists? When you start asking those questions, the fog begins to lift, not all at once, but in layers. You'll have moments of piercing clarity, followed by days of confusion. That's normal. That's the detox. The rift is not just outside you, it lives in your thoughts, your habits, your nervous system. And as you release it, your body will resist, your ego will panic, your mind will try to pull you back into the known. That's why presence is your superpower, not perfection, not performance, presence. The ability to sit with your truth even when it shakes you, even when it contradicts everything you thought was real. And here's something wild. The moment you start remembering who you are, the rift changes. It stops feeding. It starts revealing. You begin to see the patterns, the symbols, the sacred architecture behind the chaos. You realize that the rift wasn't trying to destroy you, it was trying to remind you. It was forcing you into such deep disorientation that the only way out was inward. It was asking you to stop acting like yourself and start being yourself. Because your being holds the coordinates to your exit, not your intellect, not your identity, your presence. So I ask you now, who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when you're not performing? Who are you when you stop running from your own light? If you don't know the answer, it's okay. That's the point of the rift, to strip away everything you're not so you can finally meet who you are. Not the version that fits in, not the version that wins approval. The version that was born for this exact moment. The one who remembers how to walk through fire without burning. The one who knows that darkness is not your enemy, it's your initiation. The hidden power of the rift, how your breakdown becomes a sacred blueprint. There's a secret that almost no one tells you about the rift. It's not just a trap. It's a teacher. And if you can survive it, if you can stay conscious while everything inside you collapses, then what looks like a breakdown becomes something far more powerful, a sacred blueprint. You see, the rift doesn't just pull you into confusion to disorient you. It pulls you apart so you can rebuild. Not from memory, not from programming, not from inherited beliefs, but from truth. And truth is never comfortable at first, because the version of you that you've been taught to be cannot survive in the presence of your actual purpose. When everything starts to fall apart, your relationships, your health, your sense of who you are, it's easy to think you failed. But what if the failure was the breakthrough? What if what's cracking is not your life, but the illusion that's been wrapped around it? What if the breakdown is sacred demolition? Because the soul does not remodel, it rebuilds from the foundation. And the rift, for all its chaos, is the architect of that rebuilding. The pain you're feeling, that's excavation. The confusion, that's the blueprint being drawn in real time. You are not being punished, you are being remade. But in order to read the blueprint, you have to stop resisting the collapse. You have to stop clinging to the version of life that was never meant to last. Most of us try to heal by getting back to who we were before the pain. But that version of you no longer exists. And honestly, they never really did. That version was made to fit in, made to survive, made to be accepted by a world that never saw your real light. The rift strips that version away not to destroy you, but to reveal you, who you are without the mask, without the fear, without the inherited trauma, and that raw version, the one that's left standing when everything else falls, is the one who remembers why you came here in the first place. And here's the truly mystical part. The blueprint is already inside you. It's written into your soul's coding. It's been trying to activate all along, but the noise of the world kept muting it. The rift turns down the volume on everything external so the internal can be heard. That's why solitude becomes sacred, why silence becomes a portal, why stillness becomes your compass. Because in those spaces, your real instructions start to surface. You begin to remember your medicine, your voice, your vision. You begin to see the threads connecting your deepest wounds to your highest gifts. And you realize none of it was random. Every breakdown was a breadcrumb. Every heartbreak was a doorway. Every loss was a clearing. But don't expect the blueprint to look like a step-by-step plan. It won't. It's not a business strategy. It's not a 5-year goal. It's a frequency, a resonance, a set of soul instructions that are felt, not figured out. You follow it not by logic, but by alignment. You follow it by saying yes to what expands you and no to what contracts you, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. Especially then. Because the sacred blueprint isn't designed for comfort, it's designed for clarity. And clarity often requires chaos first. You might start feeling drawn to things that don't match your old identity. New places, new people, new practices. You might start creating art, writing, speaking, building things that feel wildly unfamiliar and yet deeply natural. That is the blueprint at work. You're not making it up. You're remembering. You're tracing the architecture of your soul's mission, and every time you follow it, the rift loses its hold on you. The fog lifts. The confusion quiets. Your path doesn't become easier, but it becomes yours. And the more you live from that blueprint, the more your external world starts to mirror your internal truth. That's the real magic. Not manifestation as a gimmick, but manifestation as alignment. You stop chasing things, and they start arriving. Not because you're lucky, but because you've become a clear channel for what is meant for you. You stop trying to force life to work, and instead, life begins to work with you. Because you're no longer fighting the current, you are the current. So, let me ask you something that might shift your entire perspective. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually sacred geometry rearranging your soul's trajectory? What if your lowest moment held the code to your highest calling? What if the breakdown wasn't the end, but the beginning of the real story? We are not here to avoid the rift. We are here to walk through it awake, to feel every fracture, to face every shadow, to lose what's not real in order to find what is. And when you do that, when you let the breakdown become the blueprint, you don't just heal. You remember, you don't just survive, you arrive. Crossing the threshold, how to exit the rift and step into your true timeline. There comes a moment when the rift no longer feels like a prison but a threshold, a sacred edge between who you were and who you are becoming. And when that moment arrives, you don't walk out of the rift with fireworks or fanfare. You cross it with quiet knowing, not because you figured everything out, but because you finally remembered how to feel your way forward. Exiting the rift isn't about getting back to normal. It's about stepping into the true timeline that has been waiting for you all along, the one where your soul leads, not your fear. The one where your life stops being a reaction and becomes a revelation. But first, there's a test. Always there's a test. And the test is simple, but brutal. Are you willing to let go of the version of yourself that the world loved, but your soul never chose? Because the rift doesn't open a door unless you're willing to walk through it with nothing but truth. You can't take your masks with you. You can't take your false identities, your people-pleasing, your performative healing. The real timeline will not accept replicas. It demands realness. And realness is raw. Realness is whole. Realness is holy. You'll know you're nearing the threshold because your inner world starts vibrating differently. You'll begin to say no to things you used to tolerate. You'll feel allergic to inauthenticity, drained by meaningless conversations, lit up by the simplest moments of peace. You'll feel an inner alignment that doesn't need to be explained, it just is. And that's when the current begins to shift. People will leave, sometimes suddenly. Opportunities will collapse, doors will close. Not as punishment, but as preparation. Because what's coming next requires space. It requires sacred ground. The old must clear so the new can land. And then something subtle happens. You stop searching, not out of defeat, but out of inner fullness. The void that once terrified you becomes a sanctuary. The silence that once screamed becomes music. The confusion that once disoriented you becomes clarity in motion. You realize that you were never lost, you were being led. Every detour, every delay, every breakdown was synchronizing you with something higher, something wiser, something yours. You feel it in your bones, the timeline is shifting. But stepping into that timeline requires a final act of courage, embodiment. Not just knowing who you are, but being that in every breath, every choice, every interaction. It's easy to talk about awakening. It's another thing to live it. To make decisions from your soul, even when your mind panics. To speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. To choose alignment over approval. To choose presence over performance. To walk into rooms and let your energy speak before your words do. And when you do that, the rift no longer pulls at you. It respects you. Because you've claimed your frequency. You've stepped into coherence. You've become a living conduit for your true timeline, and timelines respond to clarity. Suddenly, life starts to flow again. Not without challenge, but with direction. Not without fear, but with purpose. You start to meet the right people at the right time, in the right way. The opportunities that come are no longer bait, they're invitations. You stop pushing. You start magnetizing. Because you're no longer chasing the life you think you want. You're becoming the version of you that life has been waiting for. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe the rift wasn't trying to break you. Maybe it was trying to wake you. Maybe it was never about escaping the dark or rushing into the light. Maybe it was about standing in both with grace. Remembering that you are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole. You are here to embody everything you are: raw, radiant, messy, miraculous. You are here to walk your unique timeline with such integrity that the universe can't help but move mountains to meet you. So, as you stand at the threshold, I ask you one final question. Are you ready to stop remembering your pain and start remembering your power? Because the rift is done with you. The lessons are complete. The echoes are fading. It's your move now. Walk through.